Hi people, it's Archivist here, coming at you with a quick review for the PC version of Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes. If you're wondering about the button prompts, please note I am using a 360 controller. First and foremost, it's important to establish that Ground Zeroes is not a complete game. Instead, it's more of just a prelude. Thankfully, the current price tag on Steam is appropriate to the game's length, so it's important not to let the brief nature of Ground Zeroes put you off. As with most Metal Gear games, the story is complex, but also very concise. There's a lot of information to get your head around in a very short space of time. During your first run through, a lot of world building and plot establishment is thrown at you all at once. I wouldn't say you necessarily have to be familiar with the series so far, but it certainly helps. However, because the game is so good for multiple playthroughs, you'll probably have a strong grasp of the essential information by the time Phantom Pain comes out. The limited amount of voice acting featured is certainly good quality, but in a few areas it seemed a little over-exaggerated. Nothing off-putting, mind you, I think it's just a certain style that makes the game more distinctive. If you've played any of the previous Metal Gear games, you're likely already familiar with Kojima's long cutscenes. They are expertly directed and truly blur the line between video games and cinema. It's worth mentioning that these cutscenes use the in-game engine, which creates a seamless transition between gameplay and narrative. The gameplay itself will be instantly familiar to anyone who's played a modern stealth game. Keep out of sight, take enemies out covertly, and run if you're detected. The appropriate difficulty combined with the tight controls makes for an experience that should please everyone. Outside of conventional stealth, there are other ways to play. You can go loud, however this will mean that far more enemies will be after you. Should you find yourself in a compromised position, you can either avoid pursuers by returning to the shadows, or you can fight back aggressively. You can even get into vehicles and turrets, something I didn't expect but I'm very glad is there. Graphically, Ground Zeroes is beautiful. Everything from character models to the environment is superbly detailed. Technically though, it wasn't the visuals that blew me away, but instead the performance. Ground Zeroes looks as if it should be an extremely demanding game, but in reality it runs surprisingly well. Obviously frame rates will vary between systems, but I personally found it to run smoother than most other games to come out this year with similar quality graphics. If it takes a little longer to properly optimise a PC game to this excellent standard, then so be it. After you finish the main game, you can complete side-op missions which take place in the same location as the story, but at different times of day. These can include taking out certain enemy targets or destroying anti-air guns. It won't keep you busy for months, but it definitely helps to justify the game's price, which is already very modest. Some may write off Ground Zeroes as nothing more than a glorified demo or purely a piece of promotional material. Whichever way you look at it though, this prelude to Phantom Pain is a fun experience that is a must-buy for any fan of stealth or the series in general. Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes may burn quickly, but it also burns very bright.